Hey guys, I'm here today to show you my September book haul, which has a preposterous amount of books in it, but you know, I'm apparently doing this YouTube thing now, so need to show you some cool books. I'm really looking forward to getting to them in the near future, and hopefully you might see something that you've not heard of. I know that's my favorite thing when I watch these book hauls, is seeing things that I've not even heard of that I can then go away and research and get excited about. So let's figure out what we've got here. The first thing we have is Life Animated by Ron Suskind. Now, if you're not from America, you may not know who Ron Suskind is, but he is the winner of the Pulitzer Prize for some of his journalistic work. And this book is about his son Owen, who was diagnosed with autism at age 4 and was not able to communicate with any of his family until such time as his dad, Ron, who wrote this book, realized that he could communicate with him using Disney characters and Disney puppets, and that Disney movies were helping him navigate life and understand some of the social conventions that were going on around him. So I've actually just started reading this book and I'm really enjoying it this far. Ron Suskind has a really interesting, engaging way of writing, especially about how autism affects the whole family, and I'm really interested in parent-child relationships and in the way that disability affects the whole family, and I'm sure that the reasons for that interest will be something I go into in a later video. There's a movie of this that has just come out. This is how I knew about the book, and I think it's out in England already, so look out for it. It goes by the same title, Life Animated, and I'll be sure to speak about this in my September wrap-up. The second book I have here is called Preparation for the Next Life by Atticus Lish, which I picked up from a secondhand bookstore in San Diego. Turns out America is the land of secondhand bookstores. Yeah, this was a really awesome one in San Diego, and I just picked it off the shelves, honestly, because I was really intrigued by the cover and the back and the blurb. Not because I knew absolutely anything about it. I don't know the author, I don't know anything about the book. It says here that it was the winner of the Penn Faulkner Award for Fiction. It's about an Iraq veteran who has PTSD, who meets an Asian undocumented immigrant who's moved to Queens in New York, and it's about how they navigate their relationship, I guess, and tell each other their stories. I literally know no more than that. I've started reading, I'm about 20 pages in. It's a really interesting writing style this far. It's very stream of consciousness and pretty dense, but I'm excited about it. It's nothing like anything that I've read before, so again, I will report back. Continuing, we have one of my most highly anticipated releases of the year, and that is because it is by Jonathan Safran Foer. Now, if you recognize that name, it might be because, like me, you're a huge fan of Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. One of my favorite books ever. Genuinely changed my life, changed how I looked at literature, changed how I looked at my own writing, I think forever, and definitely changed how I looked at 9/11. So big fan of Jonathan Safran Foer here. He hasn't released any fiction in 11 years. So obviously, for those of us who were kind of following what he was doing, this was a really exciting book. Again, not sure much about it, but it's called Here I Am, and I bought it from an independent bookstore here in LA, and I'm so excited, guys, because there's a bookstore in London down the end of my road that I've been visiting since I was yay high. They all know me in there. It's my favorite place ever. I just hadn't found the bookstore in LA yet that I love to visit, that I'll be going to get all my books from, because as much as I love Amazon, I just need to go and smell the books every once in a while. And I walked into this bookstore yesterday wanting to buy this particular book, and I think it's the one, guys. I think we've been matched. I think I found it. But anyway, this is Here I Am by Jonathan Safran Foer, and I forgot to read the blurb, so I'm just going to do that quickly. This apparently tells the story of a marriage which is kind of in shambles. It takes place over 4 weeks in Washington, DC, and it tells of this incredibly intimate portrait of this crumbling marriage. I guess this is a Jewish family that we're talking about, and it's against the backdrop of catastrophic earthquake in the Middle East that sets a bunch of things in motion, and the Israeli political crisis. So that tells you why this book is over 600 pages, because I don't know how those two things are gonna come together, and I don't know what story this is all gonna tell, but I'm so excited because I love his writing, and I'm actually a little scared about how excited I am because I really, really don't want to be disappointed. I haven't even read reviews because it breaks my heart when I'm excited for something and I read a bad review because I feel like I go into it unfairly towards the author. So again, not sure if I'll finish it this month. I'm gonna go into in another video soon about reading speed and my own reading speed and all of that stuff, but I think this is going to take me a while to get through because I just want to savor it. I forgot about my cider. Let's drink some cider. I think it's a good time to drink some cider. Next up we have Delicious Foods by James Hannaham. This, I think, it's been on my shelf for a while, but I think it came into my hands in a way that normally I don't let books come into my hand, which is an Amazon recommendation. I find Amazon's book recommendation algorithm really weird, and I don't usually trust it very much. I'd rather just ask someone. But this, I clicked on it and it seemed intriguing to me. It tells apparently of this lady who has recently lost her husband, and in the fog of grief, she gets lured to this shady farm run by some weird people who are doing some dodgy dealings. So I think it has something to do with drugs, and I think also that she leaves behind her son who's in some sort of panic-stricken search for her. This sounds really weird and not a story I would have ever thought was in anyone's head to tell, but I am really intrigued by it, and I know it's only just recently come out in England because I've spied some people getting some advanced reader copies of it. So I'm just gonna go into it pretty much blind and hope for the best. Okay guys, we're halfway through. Got a lot of books. I think I have a book buying problem. Like, there are so many books on my shelves, guys, that I haven't even gotten to, and it's been probably about 3 years that they're here, but I'm still buying books and I don't understand why. But yeah, anyway, halfway through, and the next one is something that I heard about a long time ago, and I've been meaning to get to this author. This is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, and I have heard only good things about Emily St. John Mandel here on BookTube, on Goodreads, in a load of places. So I'm finally really excited to get to one of her books. This tells the story of a theatre troupe who are putting on a performance of King Lear, and one of their troupe members drops dead whilst on stage. And this happens on the same night that a devastating flu pandemic hits the world and wipes out civilization as we know it. Now, if you're not hooked by that, I really don't know what you'll be hooked by. That sounds so weird. It's got some Shakespeare in it. It's got some end of the world stuff in. It's probably a little fantasy, which again, I'm gonna go into this in so many other videos, but I didn't read much fantasy until I met my husband, who loves fantasy. I'm slowly getting into it now, and I don't know how fantasy this particular book will be. It will be interesting to see. We're probably gonna read it together, so I'll report back about the shared reading experience on that one. Also, this weird thing where they make the cover a little bit smaller than the inside page to make the colour stick out. Does anyone know what that's called? Because I see it all the time here in America, and it's really, really beautiful and such a nice way of publishing books. But I Googled to no avail. No one seems to know what it's called. So yeah, anyone in the comments below? Yeah, this is another one of these really nice floppy paperbacks that they just don't make in England. I think she's only written 2 or 3 more books, so if I enjoy this one, I'll definitely be trying to do a full read of her stuff, and then maybe I'll even do an author spotlight, because female authors for the win. All right, guys, I can't be the only one who gets super excited when a book is just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and this is one of these books. It's so, so glorious. I picked this up in the same LA independent bookstore that I was talking about. Again, just picked it up off the shelf because it looked so beautiful and I was so intrigued by the blurb. This is called La Rose, I guess, yeah, La Rose by Louise Edric, and the blurb just sounds so exciting. Everything I want from a family drama. It takes place in 1999. in North Dakota, and it tells the story of a man who's off shooting some deer, and whilst he's doing so, he realizes that he accidentally shot a 5-year-old boy, and that 5-year-old boy happens to be his neighbor's son, who's also best friends with his own son. That just sounds really devastating, really intriguing. I wonder how that's going to pan out, and I just love these really close character studies, these little stories that take place over a small period of time that really explore relationships between people. So I really hope that that's what I'm going to get from this book. Again, we'll report back. It's quite big. Also, this deckled edge, which I just learned today is called a deckled edge, is just beautiful. I have conflicting thoughts about the deckled edge. When I first saw it, I didn't like it so much, and my husband absolutely loves them, and so we had a bit of a deckled edge debate. And when I googled it, I figured that it was actually quite an internet-wide debate. People seem to have very strong feelings about the deckled edge. So come to me in the comments below and tell me what you think about the deckled edge. Do you like it? Do you think that it makes the book more beautiful? Do you think that it makes it messy? I want to know your thoughts. Alright, so this is the runt of the litter. Tiny little book. Jacqueline Woodson. It's called Another Brooklyn. I forgot to read the blog again. The blurb. From what I know about it, it tells the story of 3 girls who grew up in Brooklyn, looking back on their childhoods, and at the moment that they realized that underneath of what they thought was an easy, beautiful, poetic life, there lived another Brooklyn which was dangerous, less hospitable to people like them as black girls, and how they sort of dealt with that transition from childhood to adulthood and how they dealt with that realization. It says here on the front, a quote by Anne Patchett, it says, "Another Brooklyn is a sort of fever dream containing both the hard truths of life and the gentle beauty of memory." I love this book, and I just think that that is praise enough for me to want to open it. I might be getting to this book really soon once I finish the other 2 that I was talking about, because it's a little tiny and I think it promises to pack a punch, so I'm very excited. I wasn't done with the deckled edge books apparently, because this is another one, and it's The Ballroom by Anna Hope. This is a historical fiction. It takes place on the Yorkshire moors in 1911. I guess I just needed some English goodness to help with the homesickness. It is set in a mental asylum, as they were called at the time, not anymore. It tells about the relationship between a man and a woman, and especially their relationship when one of them gets the opportunity to leave the mental asylum for good, and how they deal with the closeness that they have outside of the mental asylum and what that means for their relationship. I guess in some way it's centered around this ballroom as a setting. I'm normally not the hugest fan of historical fiction. I prefer modern set pieces, but let's give this a whirl. We'll see. I think it sounds really cinematic and exciting and swirling. So the penultimate book that we have is called Tell the Wolves I'm Home by Carol Rivka Brunt. The title immediately had me, as did this beautiful cover. And the story just sounds really great and touching and emotional. I hate describing things as emotional. Don't know why I did that. It takes place in 1987, and it tells the story of a little 14-year-old girl who's really, really close to her uncle, Finn. They're best friends, they do everything together. He shows her through life, teaches her how to grow up. So when he dies of AIDS, she doesn't really know what to do with herself, and she strikes up a friendship with his partner, who he was keeping from everyone else, and it's just the story of their relationship and how they deal with his death together. Other than that, I know nothing, but that was all I needed to reel me in. I'm super excited about this. I don't want to say I'm super excited anymore.
Today's video is sponsored by Super Excited.
It's true though.
Why have excited when you can have Super Excited now in 32 ounces? Super Excited.
I haven't heard this book being talked about by a lot of people, but that makes me all the more curious about it, just because I would love to be able to recommend it if I end up enjoying it. So I will I will not report back because I can't be bothered to report back on any other books.
How did you find out about this book?
I don't know. It was recommended to me on Goodreads, which reminds me that I really need to get a Goodreads account, because what kind of self-respecting booktuber does not have a Goodreads account? So this was the last book I bought from that indie bookstore that I keep on mentioning. I promise you this is not sponsored by that bookstore, but yeah, they're amazing. So I will be mentioning them a lot. It is called Michelin by Affinity Konar. There was a little sticker on it that said autographed edition, and I figured that it was one of those things where they'd had a million of them autographed. But I opened it and it actually has a message in it. It says, "Yours in remembrance and awe, Affinity Konar." So what more do you want? I would read it, whatever it was about, frankly. This is set in 1944 at the time of the Holocaust, and it tells the story of two Jewish twins who are identical and take refuge in one another, and specifically in their identicalness against the horrors of the Holocaust. At some point during the novel, they get separated and meet other people along the way, and it's how they deal with their separation. I'm a twin, in case you didn't know that, so any books about twins have my name on them. I can't think of anything more interesting than a pair of identical twins being separated when all they needed was to be together during that time. What's becoming clear to me is that I really enjoy going into books with no precedent. No, I know I'm gonna love this. I've heard so much about this. I know that I've been recommended a bunch of books on BookTube, for example, that have been talked about by a load of people, and then I haven't necessarily had the same opinion. And even though that's exciting, because I'm all for differences of opinion, especially in a community like this where we all talk about our feelings about books, but there is a certain pressure, I guess, especially if someone you respect recommended something to you. I'm just really excited to get to all of these unknown books and hopefully bring them out into the world.
Today's video is sponsored by Super Excited. Super Excited now in 32 ounces. Super excited.
And that's it for today, guys. That was quite a big enough haul. I think that if I bought any more books, I probably wouldn't have any more money to buy food. So I'm going to go ahead and get some reading done, and in the next couple of weeks we have some really interesting things coming up on this channel. We're going to talk about stuff that I've watched. We're going to talk a lot about Netflix, because apparently Netflix are bringing out really great things recently, and about films, and then we're going to do a wrap up where I'm going to talk to you about stuff that I've read at the end of September. I'm also going on some travel, so I really hope to film some of that and come to you with some more bookish goodness. That's it for me. I look forward to seeing you again soon with some new books and a drink. Bye!